a place of science and mythology.
We have some incredible breaking news for you. Disappear into a magical doorway within the rock face here at the Giant's Causeway.
For generations, a mysterious stone door hidden deep within Ireland has captured the imagination of explorers, historians, and curious travelers. Surrounded by ancient legends, strange theories, and whispers of forgotten civilizations, it remained one of the country's greatest mysteries. Many believed it concealed nothing at all, while others were convinced it protected an extraordinary secret waiting to be revealed. But when scientists finally opened and examined what lay beyond it, the discovery stunned even the experts. What exactly did they find, and why has it left the world talking? This is the story. The Impossible Door, where ancient legends were born. The mystery began with a series of blurry, shaky videos that quietly made their way through small groups of researchers, geology enthusiasts, and people fascinated by unexplained discoveries. The clips were far from convincing. Their poor quality made them easy to dismiss, and most people who watched them assumed they were nothing more than another cleverly edited internet hoax designed to attract attention. At first, few believed they deserved a second look. But the stories told by the people who claimed to witness the event were far more difficult to ignore. Several tourists, along with park rangers working at the Giant's Causeway, insisted they had seen something that completely defied logic. According to their accounts, part of the enormous basalt cliff did not crack or crumble as ordinary rock would. Instead, it appeared to separate along a perfectly defined line, slowly swinging open like a carefully built stone door, before quietly closing again, leaving almost no sign that anything unusual had happened. Some even claimed it looked as though something had passed through the opening before it disappeared once more. The location only made the story even more fascinating. The Giant's Causeway, formed nearly 60 million years ago by massive volcanic eruptions, has long been one of the world's most extraordinary natural landmarks. For centuries, local legends claimed that the giant Finn McCool built his famous stone columns as a pathway across the sea to Scotland. Those ancient stories had always been treated as folklore. But now, people were asking whether the legendary landscape might still be hiding secrets no one had ever imagined. Even so, almost everyone remained skeptical. Scientists know that basalt behaves in predictable ways. It fractures under pressure, slowly wears away through erosion, and eventually breaks apart over time. It does not smoothly open and close like a giant stone doorway. To most viewers, the videos were simply another internet illusion that would soon be forgotten. Yet among the many people who watched the footage, one experienced observer noticed something everyone else had overlooked. Instead of focusing on the impossible movement itself, he saw a tiny detail that transformed what seemed like an obvious fake into a mystery he could no longer explain. Tourists claimed to have watched part of the massive basalt cliff at the Giant's Causeway slowly open like a perfectly fitted door before closing again. But what was the Giant's Causeway known for before this strange observation? What remarkable features made it such a popular tourist attraction? How widely was it recognized even before this alleged discovery? Let's uncover the astonishing details. The ancient landscape. Long before anyone claimed to see a mysterious stone doorway hidden inside its cliffs, the Giant's Causeway had already become one of the most remarkable natural landmarks on Earth. Resting along the rugged coastline of County Antrim in Northern Ireland, this breathtaking landscape has amazed travelers, scientists, and storytellers for generations. Every part of the coastline seems to tell a story, blending incredible natural beauty with centuries of history and legend. The causeway itself was formed during a period of intense volcanic activity. Powerful eruptions sent rivers of molten lava flowing across the region, covering the land in thick layers. As the lava slowly cooled and hardened, something extraordinary happened. It cracked into nearly 40,000 tightly packed basalt columns, many with 6 perfectly shaped sides. Together, these stone pillars created what looks like a giant pathway stretching from the foot of the cliffs and disappearing beneath the waves, almost as though someone had carefully built it by hand. The landscape is filled with impressive natural features. Some of the tallest columns rise almost 12 meters into the air, while towering walls of solidified lava remain visible along the surrounding cliffs, reminding visitors of the incredible forces that shaped this coastline millions of years ago. Standing among these perfectly fitted stones, it is easy to understand why so many people believe the place feels unlike anywhere else on Earth. Its extraordinary geology and stunning appearance eventually earned worldwide recognition. In 1986, the Giant's Causeway was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrating its outstanding natural importance. It was later protected as a national nature reserve, ensuring that future generations could continue exploring and appreciating this one-of-a-kind landscape. Today, nearly 1 million visitors travel there every year, drawn by its spectacular scenery, fascinating volcanic history, and the famous legend of the giant Finn McCool, who was said to have built the stone pathway himself. Long before mysterious videos and stories of a hidden stone door began circulating, the Giant's Causeway had already inspired awe, curiosity, and endless questions. It was a place where nature seemed almost impossible on its own. That is exactly why, when whispers of an opening hidden inside its ancient cliffs finally appeared, so many people found themselves wondering whether the landscape still held secrets waiting to be uncovered. The Giant's Causeway had already been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its extraordinary natural features long before the mysterious footage surfaced. But who took it upon himself to examine the clip more closely and uncover the hidden details others had overlooked? What exactly did he discover? And what actions did he take after watching the footage? Let's find out. The former archaeologist who pays attention to detail. The one person who refused to dismiss the strange footage was Kiran Orla, a highly respected former field archaeologist known for his careful approach to science. Throughout his career, he had earned a reputation for relying on solid evidence rather than rumors or wild theories. Years spent studying Ireland's ancient underground structures had taught him that every rock, every crack, and every layer of stone held clues about the past. He trusted measurements, observations, and facts far more than exciting stories. Unlike most people who watched the videos, Orla paid almost no attention to the dramatic sight of the stone appearing to open. That wasn't what caught his eye. Instead, he became fascinated by one small detail that everyone else seemed to overlook. The thin line where the section of rock appeared to separate from the surrounding cliff. To an ordinary viewer, it looked unimportant. To someone with years of geological experience, it was everything. His knowledge of volcanic rock immediately told him something wasn't right. Basalt is created when molten lava cools and hardens, forming natural cracks that are never perfectly smooth. Whenever a large piece of basalt moves, even slightly, it leaves behind clear evidence. There should be crushed stone, fine dust, fresh fractures, scraped surfaces, chipped edges, or other signs showing that enormous blocks of rock had rubbed against each other. But as Orla carefully studied every frame of the footage, he found none of those things. The edges looked remarkably clean. There was no debris falling from the cliff, no damaged surfaces, no fresh cracks spreading through the surrounding rock, and no marks suggesting the stone had ever moved at all. It seemed impossible. Still unwilling to jump to conclusions, he replayed the videos repeatedly, slowing them down frame by frame. He searched for hidden edits, computer effects, unusual lighting, camera tricks, and every possible explanation that could expose the footage as fake. Instead of finding flaws, each careful review only deepened the mystery. For the first time in his professional life, Orla found himself facing evidence he simply could not explain. The careful scientist, who had always demanded proof before believing anything extraordinary, made an unusual decision. Rather than continue guessing from behind a screen, he packed his equipment, traveled alone to the Giant's Causeway and set out to discover the truth for himself. Rather than relying on assumptions after watching the footage, archaeologist Kieran Orla traveled to the site of the mystery to investigate the strange phenomenon firsthand. But what did he do when he arrived? Did what he found match everything he had learned through years of experience? Or was it completely different from anything he had ever encountered? Let's unravel the details. Cliff's weakest point led to an impossible discovery. When Kieran Orla finally arrived at the Giant's Causeway, he resisted the temptation to take the most obvious approach. Instead of drilling directly into the mysterious section of rock that people claimed had opened like a stone door, he chose to work more carefully. Years of studying volcanic formations had taught him that ancient lava never cools into one perfectly solid block. Deep inside the cliff, natural variations in density, hidden stress points, and subtle weaknesses always exist. If there really was something concealed behind the rock, he believed there might be a safer way to reach it without disturbing the mysterious doorway itself. Relying only on his experience, careful observations, and a professional rotary hammer drill, Orla began examining the cliff inch by inch. For hours, he ran his hands across the weathered basalt, paying close attention to tiny differences in texture, color, and fracture patterns that most people would never notice. He also studied the direction in which the ancient lava had once flowed, using his knowledge of geology to identify the section of rock most likely to be slightly thinner than the rest. Eventually, after countless measurements and careful inspection, he chose one small spot just beside the suspected doorway. It was close enough that, if a hidden chamber truly existed behind the cliff, a narrow borehole might reach it without causing serious damage to the surrounding rock. It was a cautious plan built on patience rather than guesswork. As the drill began cutting into the basalt, everything happened exactly as expected. The powerful bit pushed steadily through the dense volcanic stone, producing the familiar grinding sound and releasing fine black dust that had remained locked inside the cliff for millions of years. Every vibration traveling back through the drill confirmed he was cutting through solid rock, exactly as geology predicted. Then, in a single unexpected moment, everything changed. Without the slightest warning, the steady resistance disappeared completely. The drill suddenly surged forward several inches, almost pulling itself from Orla's hands, as though the solid cliff had simply vanished beyond the tip of the bit. He immediately switched off the machine and stood frozen in silence. The message was impossible to ignore. Instead of finding more basalt, where millions of years of volcanic rock should have continued, he had broken through into a hidden chamber. But what did this hidden chamber really mean? Would he enter to uncover what lay inside, or would his investigation end there? Now, let's explore the section that seemed to defy nature itself. A perfectly sealed chamber. Breaking through into a space was only the beginning of the mystery. Even though Kieran Orla had finally reached what appeared to be a hidden chamber behind the cliff, he refused to rush in or even look inside straight away. Years of archaeological fieldwork had taught him that patience often revealed more than curiosity. Before taking another step, he wanted to understand exactly what kind of space he had uncovered. He switched off the drill and stood completely still. Then, he moved one hand slowly toward the small opening, expecting to feel at least the faintest movement of air. If there were a natural cave behind the rock, air pressure should have shifted the moment the hole was made. He also listened carefully, hoping to hear a distant echo, dripping water, or even the sound of wind moving through hidden cracks. Nothing happened. There was no breeze brushing against his hand, no echo returned from the darkness, no change in air pressure, no sound of water. Only complete, almost unnatural silence. The discovery troubled him more than the chamber itself. The Giant's Causeway stands on a rugged coastline constantly exposed to powerful winds, heavy rain, crashing waves, and salty sea air. Over hundreds or thousands of years, natural cavities always develop tiny cracks that allow air and moisture to pass through. Yet this space behaved as though it had remained completely isolated from the outside world for a long time. To Orla, that suggested two unsettling possibilities. Either the chamber had somehow remained perfectly sealed for centuries, untouched by nature, or it had been intentionally closed off in a way no ordinary geological process could explain. Despite his growing curiosity, he knew entering such a confined space alone would be far too dangerous. There was no way of knowing whether the chamber was stable, flooded, or filled with harmful gases. Instead of risking his own life, he carefully widened the opening just enough to fit a small tracked crawler equipped with bright lights and a high-resolution camera.
Possibly plausible that the legendary and mythical giant Finn McCool is indeed sleeping within the mountain here.
Before sending it inside, he checked the video connection several times, making sure every system was working properly. Then, taking one final look at the narrow opening, he slowly guided the crawler into the darkness, fully aware that whatever lay hidden beyond the stone would reveal itself to the camera. The scientist guided the crawler through the narrow opening and into the darkness to discover what was hidden inside the chamber. But would his efforts be worth it in the end? What would the crawler uncover? Would it reveal something he recognized from his years as an archaeologist? Or was something entirely different waiting to be discovered? Let's find out. The strange objects that should not have been there. As the small tracked crawler rolled through the narrow opening and into the hidden chamber, everything seemed surprisingly normal at first. Its bright lights revealed rough basalt walls stretching into the darkness, exactly what Kiran Orla expected to find inside a volcanic formation. For a brief moment, it looked as though the mystery might end with the discovery of nothing more than an ordinary underground cavity. Then the camera revealed one detail that quietly changed everything. The floor beneath the crawler looked completely different from the jagged rock near the entrance. Instead of uneven volcanic stone, it appeared remarkably flat and unusually smooth. The surface looked almost polished, as though it had been carefully leveled long ago rather than shaped by natural geological forces over millions of years. It was the kind of detail that immediately caught Orla's attention because nature rarely creates such regular surfaces deep inside sealed basalt formations. As the crawler continued moving forward, the mystery grew even stranger. Its lights slowly uncovered a cluster of dark objects hanging from the ceiling ahead. At first glance, Orla struggled to understand what he was seeing. The objects did not reflect the crawler's powerful lights the way ordinary rock normally would. Instead, they seemed to absorb much of the light, making their outlines difficult to define and their true shapes almost impossible to recognize. Then came the most unsettling discovery of all. The hanging forms refused to remain perfectly still. As Orla replayed the live video feed, frame after frame revealed tiny, invisible shifts in their positions. They were not swinging like objects moved by wind, nor were they falling or breaking apart. They simply appeared slightly different every time the camera looked at them. Inside a chamber that seemed completely sealed, with no moving air to disturb anything, such movement should have been impossible. Hoping there was a simple explanation, Orla carefully adjusted the crawler to capture the objects from different angles. He expected the changing perspective to reveal them as ordinary mineral formations or strange rock deposits.
And I've been examining the rock face to see if there is indeed any sign.
Instead, every new view made them appear even more difficult to explain. With every meter the crawler traveled, Orla realized he was no longer investigating an unusual cave. He was exploring a hidden place that seemed to ignore the normal rules of geology, leaving him with more questions than answers about what had been concealed beneath the ancient cliffs for so long. Orla discovered a cluster of strange, dark objects hanging from above that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it, making their true shapes almost impossible to identify. But what else would the crawler uncover? Would its discoveries challenge what scientists had long believed, or would they simply reinforce what was already known? Let's uncover the details. The signs that nature could not easily explain. As the small crawler continued its slow journey deeper into the hidden chamber, the surroundings became more unsettling with every meter. What had started as an ordinary-looking passage through ancient basalt slowly transformed into a place that seemed to ignore the normal rules of nature. A thin mist drifted through the air, gradually coating the camera lens with moisture and blurring everything ahead. Objects that looked close one moment suddenly seemed much farther away the next, making it difficult for Orla to judge the true size of the chamber. The ground beneath the crawler also began to change. The firm volcanic rock near the entrance slowly gave way to a softer, damp surface that seemed almost unnatural. Scattered across the floor were shallow pools of a dark liquid, unlike anything Orla expected to find inside a sealed chamber. It did not look like ordinary seawater or rainwater that had somehow leaked inside over the years. Instead, it rested silently in the low areas of the floor, giving off strange reflections whenever the crawler's lights passed over it. What disturbed Orla most was that the reflections refused to behave normally. Even when the crawler stopped moving completely, the surface of the liquid continued to produce gentle ripples and shifting patterns, as though something invisible beneath or within it were quietly disturbing the stillness. In a chamber where there was no wind, no flowing water, and no visible movement, the unexplained ripples were impossible to ignore. Then the camera slowly tilted upward. What appeared above forced Orla to question everything he believed about how volcanic rock naturally forms. Running across the ceiling were long, straight structures embedded directly into the basalt itself. They resembled carefully placed beams, stretching from one side of the chamber to the other, at almost perfectly even intervals. Unlike the famous hexagonal columns of the Giant's Causeway,
People flock each year to see the Giant's Causeway, the Emerald Isle's first World Heritage Site.
which were shaped naturally as cooling lava cracked under immense pressure, these features looked remarkably deliberate. Even more remarkable, their spacing appeared to line up almost perfectly with the strange hanging objects the crawler had passed earlier. The discovery suggested that neither feature existed by chance. Instead, they seemed connected, as though both were parts of a single hidden structure concealed deep inside the ancient volcanic cliffs. Orla also discovered what appeared to be a deliberate design embedded within the middle of the chamber, looking far too carefully arranged to be the work of nature alone. But what else lay ahead, waiting to be uncovered? And could the scientist explain it based on his years of experience? Now let's delve into the questions science could not answer. A sudden flash of light. Determined to uncover what lay farther inside the hidden chamber, Orla carefully guided the crawler deeper into the darkness, even as the conditions around it became increasingly difficult. Every few meters seemed to bring a new challenge. Moisture slowly collected on the camera lens, making the picture less clear with each passing moment. The air inside the chamber felt strangely heavy, and the once steady video feed began to suffer from bursts of static and interference. Images flickered, details became harder to see, and the connection grew less reliable. Yet Orla refused to stop. He had come too far to turn back without learning more. Then, without the slightest warning, something happened that completely changed the investigation. A bright flash of light suddenly appeared somewhere ahead of the crawler. It lasted only a brief moment, but it was unmistakable. For an instant, the mysterious glow shone even brighter than the crawler's own powerful lamps, before vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. There was no lingering light, no visible object, and no obvious source left behind. It was as though the chamber itself had briefly come alive before falling silent once again. Startled, Orla immediately brought the crawler to a stop. Rather than pushing forward, he replayed the recording over and over, examining every single frame with the careful eye that had guided his entire career. He searched for anything that could explain what he had seen. Perhaps it was a reflection from the crawler's lights, a camera malfunction, or some unusual effect caused by moisture on the lens. but every careful review led him back to the same unsettling conclusion. The mysterious flash had not come from the crawler. It had not been caused by the camera. It was not a trick of light or a simple reflection bouncing off the walls. Somehow, the light had originated from somewhere inside the sealed chamber itself. That realization raised a question Orla could not answer. If this hidden space had truly remained closed off for centuries, untouched by people and cut off from the outside world, what could have produced its own light deep within the darkness? The more he searched for a logical explanation, the more the mystery refused to fit within the limits of ordinary science. The mysterious flash had appeared for only a brief moment before vanishing into the darkness. But could Orla reach the place where it had come from? Would the chamber finally reveal the source of the unexplained light, or would it stop him before he ever got close? Let's find out. The chamber that seemed to push him away. Even though a growing sense of unease had begun to settle over him, Orla refused to abandon the investigation. The unexplained flash of light had only strengthened his determination to discover what was hidden farther inside the sealed chamber. Keeping his focus on the video monitor, he slowly guided the crawler toward the exact place where the mysterious glow had appeared moments earlier. He hoped that moving closer would finally provide the answers he had been searching for. Instead, the chamber seemed to become even more difficult to explore. Almost immediately, the surface beneath the crawler began to change again. What had once been firm enough to support the machine gradually became soft and unstable. The crawler's tracks started slipping against the damp ground, struggling to grip the strange material beneath them. Every movement forward required more effort than before, and progress became painfully slow. It almost felt as though the chamber itself was resisting every attempt to move deeper inside. At the same time, the electronic connection between Orla and the crawler became increasingly unreliable. The video feed that had guided him since the beginning suddenly filled with bursts of static and heavy interference. The picture flickered repeatedly, sometimes becoming so distorted that important details disappeared altogether. Several times, the signal seemed close to failing, raising the frightening possibility that he might lose contact with the crawler forever. By the time the machine had traveled nearly 20 meters into the hidden chamber, it could go no farther. The tracks spun helplessly against the unstable surface, unable to pull the crawler forward another inch. With the signal growing weaker every second, Orla faced a difficult decision. Continuing deeper could mean losing not only the crawler, but also every piece of footage it had recorded. Reluctantly, he ordered the machine to turn around and begin the long journey back. Later, Orla admitted that failing equipment was only part of the reason for his decision. Something inside him had quietly changed during those long minutes underground. He had entered the hidden chamber believing every mystery could eventually be explained through careful observation and science. But by the time he turned back, he was no longer searching for answers. More than anything else, he simply wanted to leave that silent place behind. Although Orla had no choice but to turn back, his investigation was far from over. What would he do with the evidence he had gathered? Would the hidden chamber finally be revealed to the world? Or would its greatest secrets remain buried behind the mysterious stone door? Let's uncover the astonishing details. The mystery behind the stone door never ended. With no other choice, Orla carefully guided the crawler back along the same path it had taken into the hidden chamber. As the machine slowly rolled through the darkness, its camera once again passed beneath the long beam-like structures embedded in the ceiling and the strange hanging forms that had disturbed him from the beginning. Even on the return journey, those dark shapes seemed subtly different every time they appeared on the screen. They were never moving in any obvious way, yet they never seemed to be in the same position either. Whether it was an illusion or something far more difficult to explain, Orla could not ignore the feeling that the chamber remained just as mysterious on the way out as it had on the way in. Gradually, the darkness gave way to light. The narrow opening appeared ahead, and moments later, the crawler emerged safely onto the rocky ground, beneath the familiar skies of the Giant's Causeway. The sea, the wind, and the towering basalt columns looked exactly as they always had. To anyone passing by, it was simply another peaceful day along one of Ireland's most famous coastlines. But for Orla, nothing felt the same. After recovering the crawler and saving every piece of recorded footage, he quietly packed away his equipment. Then, with the same care that had guided every step of his investigation, he sealed the small drill hole so perfectly that no visible trace of his work remained. Anyone standing before the cliff would have seen nothing unusual. The rock looked untouched, as though no one had ever drilled into it at all. In the time that followed, no new videos appeared showing the mysterious stone door opening again. No official scientific report confirmed that the hidden chamber existed, and no public investigation ever announced a remarkable discovery inside the cliffs. To the outside world, the mystery simply faded into silence. Yet one belief never changed in Orla's mind. He never described what he found as a natural cave created by ordinary geology. Everything he observed pointed instead to a place that seemed carefully arranged, deliberately hidden, and unlike anything he had encountered during his years studying ancient rock formations. That thought still lingers today. Thousands of visitors continue walking across the Giant's Causeway, admiring its famous basalt columns and ancient legends without realizing what might lie only a short distance beyond the solid stone. And if the chamber Orla reached was only one small passage connected to something much larger, then the greatest secret behind the mysterious stone door may remain hidden, waiting in the darkness where no one has yet been able to see it. So, what do you think about the scientists' discovery? Do its greatest secrets remain hidden behind the mysterious stone door? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.